Because every predator has a prey, and when you lose one, the other will become rampant. But what about human beings? If you lose the balance, could humanity become the host? If the natural order is disrupted and the species balance is upset, and we walk in to the breach, to the gap, could human beings become the host of such a disruption? This is something I think we need to think about very clearly, because of the new pandemics that every now and then enters the world. What do you do with these, and how do you manage them? If the traditional host is gone, what do you do? Some years ago, I lived in the country, and we had a very strong infestation of the deer tick. And the reason why the deer tick was rampant is because the predator had disappeared. And so human beings, you're playing on your lawn, and suddenly your kid gets bitten, and you have a very serious problem. Predator-prey balance. And that's something I hope we can culturally be more sensitive to, and not go with a one-dimensional look and destroy one without leaving the other. The second major issue that we need to face is not the biological production system, but our technological production system and the waste that is generated with this. On the biological level, we know we're disrupting the natural order. On the technological level, we know that we are also creating very, very serious problems in terms of the global waste budget. We are generating waste at a much faster rate than we are producing resources. The question is, how can we more prudently use the earth resources that will limit the waste that is generated? We need to move from efficiency to effectiveness. We're a very, very efficient species, but how effective we are in managing the fruits of our labor. In addition to the waste that's being generated, traditional waste, there's now something called genetic junk, genetically engineered waste. What happens to scientific experiments when we are leaving behind certain products that came out of the experiment? It would seem that it's time to worth pondering the whole issue of waste and now how we can handle this question. And here one might suggest that human beings produce wealth very, very slowly, but we produce waste very rapidly. And this waste is being produced on just about every front. So we need to find out how we can manage more effectively the waste budget we're generating. We also need to address the question how to manage our technological civilization, which is in a collision course with the natural world, or the technosphere, as some like to call it, is in a collision course with the biosphere. How can we ensure that we never hit that critical break boundary and that we can move away from those outer limits on which the stability of the biosphere depends? Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have any answers to these questions, but putting them to a group such as this, I think will elevate them in the level of our consciousness, and at least the next generation, or students or scholars, may want to address them. And finally, there is the question of how to manage the global commons. And by the global commons, we mean that complex of air, water, seas, and oceans that nourish the earth. And I believe that it's very, very important that we begin to take a very hard look at how we manage the commons. Let's look at what I might call the three most important ones, or atmospheric commons. The atmosphere, which is vital to the maintenance of life on Earth, is being very seriously threatened. And I think most of you, I think in Mexico, you may already have some experience with what we call the threat of acid rains. As a result of our industrial productivity, we are generating effluents that infect the hydrological cycle, and the rainfall has become quite acidic. And that acid rains has a range of between a tomato and a lemon. And those people who have great historic heritages can appreciate this. In Rome, the great monuments are now being given the texture of a soggy plaster. You can flick it off. I think in Mexico City itself, Mexico may have some problems of acid rains and the effects of that. So acid rain is a very, very real problem and a very major atmospheric threat. And I know that there are many countries that are very keen on addressing this question, but then we have a rather interesting dimension to this, that there is a question of trans-frontier pollution. The acidification may be caused in one country and is affected in another country. And unless we have global cooperation or international cooperation, the question of dealing with the acid rain problem is going to be a moot question. And so this is a very, very real one that we need to address.